Alrighty, there it is. Good morning, guys. Team Super Training. Mark Bell reached out to me and he said, what are you doing right now for workouts? Would you mind shooting a video for my Facebook group? And so, sure, why not? Got a quarantine going on, violating our social distancing rule here, but we got to get the workouts in. Hypertrophy is key. So that's what I'm doing right now is the hypertrophy training block. You know, I like to power lift a lot. It's probably why I never got very big, I suppose, because I was always powerlifting. But hypertrophy is a different animal, and we're going to talk through what the best scientific principles are for hypertrophy. Fortunately, I've got Dr. Damon McCune here, registered dietitian, PhD in exercise physiology, to keep me honest as we go through this. Just the general principles that we give people, even as part of our vertical diet and peak performance ebook. We include this chart in there so people can optimize their hypertrophy training, make sure they get the best benefits out of it. So today's leg training, it's our Quadzilla hypertrophy leg training session. And there's a host of things that we like to pay attention to. Damon, why don't you lead off with the first one there?
Sure. So frequency, this is something that's been talked about a lot out there, and there's a lot of there's different ways to skin a cat, right? So there's a lot of different paths to the same destination. We talk about that all the time with diet. Same thing with training. In the literature, what's been shown to be the most effective is twice a week. They've looked at this from once a week all the way up to 4 times a week, and 2 times seems to be the optimal point. If you're doing more than that, you don't seem to be getting any additional benefit. If you're doing less than that, you may be cutting yourself a little short.
Now, you can hold on to muscle tissue with 1 time a week.
Of course.
Half as much to maintain, twice as much to gain. So that's kind of the philosophy if you don't have a lot of weights right now or a gym to work out in. Just one session per body part per week to failure could probably get you all the muscle retention benefits that you want. But we're going balls to the wall right now. We're pouring everything into actually growing during this downtime. So frequencies first. How about volume?
So volume, anywhere between 10 to 20 sets per body part per week. So these are working sets. So you're going to want to make sure you warm up so you're not setting yourself up for injury. But in terms of working sets, this is what we're trying to shoot for. So you can split this up between the 2 sessions. So you can do 10 twice a week, or you can split it up however works for your schedule and what you're trying to accomplish. So.
Yeah, and you know, some people might start out with 10 sets per week and over the course of an 8 or 10 week period work up to 20. That could be part of your progression so that there's actually an increased load during the course of that week. Also, if there's certain body parts you want to prioritize, like legs, you might do less of your chest or back if it was a strong point and do more of your legs, because the systemic fatigue can start to take effect. If you do 20 sets for every body part every week, you might start to build up some systemic fatigue that might inhibit your growth response. Yeah. So we try and prioritize. Right now we're prioritizing legs, so I might only do 5 sets for back, and 5 sets for chest each workout, but I'll try and get in like 9 sets for legs.
Yeah, I think it was Brad Schoenfeld that was talking about, you know, you kind of look at your volume as your bank account, right? You've got this much to budget. Are you going to spend a lot of time budgeting for body parts that are already strong, or are you going to focus on the ones that are weak? Probably better to focus on the ones that are weak.
Okay, how about intensity?
Intensity, 1 to 2 reps from failure. So this is one of those things where it's subjective. There's not really a solid measurement here. People talk about RIR, or reps in reserve. That's what we're talking about here, 1 to 2 reps in reserve. Your RPE is your reported perceived exertion, or how difficult it feels. If you're getting to this point, you're doing really well. And even if this is just with bands, right, you need to get to the point where you are fatigued, to where you can't really do more than 2 more reps, period.
Yeah, and I found if you're going to do, you know, maybe 8 really hard sets for a body part, you don't want to go all the way to failure on the first set or 2, because it's going to dramatically affect the rest of the sets. Yep. And so I might leave 2 reps in reserve for the first couple of sets, and then go pretty darn close to failure for the last set of each of the 3 or 2 exercises that I choose to do.
Yeah.
So what's next as far as rep range?
So rep range, we're going for the 8 to 12 reps per set. Really anything between 6 and 20 has been shown to have kind of the same benefit, but this seems to be the sweet spot for most people, and it gives you that resistance that's really giving you the most stimulus. Now, right now, a lot of people are having trouble finding enough resistance if you're just using bands or so on and so forth. Obviously, you're going to be above this. Just go till you can't go anymore. But if you've got some weights around and you can get to this point in terms of resistance, this is what we're shooting for.
Yeah, and you know, you can do 5 rep sets with a heavier load and still gain just as much muscle as an 8 to 12. And you can do 20 rep sets with a lighter load and still gain just as much muscle as the 8 to 12. You'll gain more strength with the 5s. You might gain some more muscular endurance with the 20s, but you'll also get more fatigue with the 5s and the 20s.
And there's a trade-off in terms of risk of injury. So those 5s are going to be much higher, so it's return on investment there.
What we find in these studies is the folks that lift in the 8 to 12 range, at the end of the study, they tend to have less fatigue than the people who lift in the 5s and the 20s. And I'm doing this long term. I want to get the maximum benefit, but the least overall fatigue, because that's not necessarily indicative of a better hypertrophy response.
You can't go max balls out all the time. That's what Stan's talking about there. In the studies, they tend to see more dropout in those people that are at those extremes. So
you can train long or you can train hard, but you can't do both.
Right.
So how about the exercises? How do we pick the exercises?
So we're looking for, we're trying to prioritize our multi-joint, our compound movements, right? So you're getting the most out of that. And then we're going to finish off with single joints to really just kind of top off the workout. This, again, return on investment, you're just getting the most bang for your buck there. So,
and earlier in your career, you want to do those multi-joint movements because you'll build more muscle overall, even the muscles that are supporting muscles. And then as you see what develops easily on you and what's harder to develop, you may end up focusing on the harder movements. Dorian Yates said throughout his career he couldn't squat anymore because he just didn't get any benefit for the quads, and so he had to do more leg pressing and hack squat where he could isolate the actual quad. I tend to be the same way. I'm an ass and back squatter, and so I never built very big legs from squatting. Today I'm going to show you a variation that allows me to get more benefit for the legs, and we'll talk more about that.
Real quick on this too, the research has also shown if you're doing an exercise that uses larger muscle groups, say the quads like a squat, you're going to recruit more muscle fibers than if you were doing a single joint. So when it comes to stimulation and overall calories burned, because right now a lot of people are trying to maintain where they're at with their body composition, this is your bread and butter. So.
Yep. How about the tempo? How fast or slow should we do an exercise?
So this is one of those things, there's a lot of stuff out there if you're doing like super slow sets that's going to somehow have this magical benefit, and that may not be the case. So in terms of tempo, we're really trying to do a 2 to 6 second for the whole rep. For me, I always try to have anybody I'm working with, and your concentric movement when you're actually pushing, have that be as explosive as possible, right? Get as much power generated as you can. I think that's the best way to do it. In terms of eccentric movement, that's where you can slow it down a little bit. You're going to generate more force. There's going to be a little bit more damage during that phase of the movement. But all in all, don't get too stuck on tempo here.
And for hypertrophy, what's the sweet spot for rest? What should your rest periods be?
I'd say 2 to 3 minutes. Anything 3 to 5 seems to be the same. I guess the point here is you don't need to do the circuit training 20-second rest. Take a second. Get your recovery up there so that the next set that you walk into, you're going to be able to give it all.
Yeah, you need adequate recovery so the muscle can perform another exercise with a similar amount of weight and reps, and not too much rest such that you kind of lose all of your blood flow and everything, and you got to warm up again. Okay, well, you might notice a change of scene. So we recorded the whole intro, and then we worked out, and then I discovered that some dumbass, me, forgot to put it on airplane mode, and somebody called in and it cut off the other half of our intro. So fortunately we got all the way up to the split, and so here's where we'll start off again. People are always asking me what's the best split, and to be honest with you, it really doesn't matter. We're going to go over a whole bunch of options. So long as you're following the other scientific principles of hypertrophy, the splits are a matter of personal preference. So I'm going to be breathing heavy throughout this because we just finished squatting. So there's all sorts of different splits. I design them to accommodate people's schedule.
Definitely, yeah.
If they work, 5 days a week and maybe want the weekends off of work, I might load more of their training on the weekend when they're rested and well fed, and so they can train harder and then have more days off during the week.
Yep.
So here's some examples. This is a 2-day-a-week split. So you train on Monday and Friday, but you train your full body each day. And that's perfectly reasonable. You can get gains from that, absolutely. We go to a 4-day-a-week split. Maybe Monday you do your upper, Tuesday you do your lower. Take Wednesday off, Thursday do your upper, Friday do your lower. Take the weekend off. I really like this one. It gives you a lot of time to put in more sets for each body part and rest between workouts to get lots of days off, which I call the growth days. The days off are really important. That's when you grow. All you do in the gym is break down muscle tissue. Why don't you explain the 5-day split?
Yep, so the 5-day split, you're doing an upper lower off and then push pull legs off. This is giving you 2 days a week off. It kind of leads into the number 4 here as well. This is the one that Stan and I like the most and we're following right now. It's push-pull legs. Now, you can also do push-pull off and throw legs onto each one of these days too. You can get really creative with this. I think the big take-home here is like Stan said at the beginning, this needs to fit your lifestyle and your schedule, right?
Yeah.
You can still be effective with 2 days a week, full body, but don't try to throw this into your schedule if you're not going to be able to be consistent with it, because then it's not going to be effective.
I really like this one, but the workouts don't fall on the same day each week because it's on an 8-day plan. We do push one day, pull the next, legs the next, day off, and then push, pull, legs, day off. So you're on an 8-day program. But it gives me 3 full days of rest between my leg days. And that's really what I'm focused on right now. I can do less work for back because it's a strong body part for me and lets me invest more into legs.
Yep.
And did we talk earlier, I can't remember, about the cumulative fatigue?
Yeah, so I think it was Schoenfeld was talking about how your volume, your total volume for the week is basically like your bank account. It's your budget, right? So you want to budget your volume to things that you want to work on or your lagging parts that you're trying to train up. You're not going to devote a lot of your account to things that are already strong. You want to focus on the things that you're trying to bring up. So.
Yeah, it's a total is limited. So if you put like 80% of your effort into legs, you only got 20% left for the rest of the body in terms of the amount of fatigue that you can accumulate. What's the last one there?
So this is the one that Stan's following when he was working with Flex, and this is a really aggressive approach.
Very aggressive.
So this is a push-pull legs off. So a 6-day training and then 2 a day is on those 6 days. So it's 12 days or 12 workouts per week. That doesn't mean that each one of these workouts is an hour to an hour and a half. That's absolutely the opposite. So each one of these workouts may be 30 to 40 minutes, but it's getting there, hitting it hard, and then leave so you can go home and recover.
Yeah, and the biggest thing about that is I was sleeping 10 hours a night. I was napping every afternoon. I was eating 8 meals a day.
Yep.
That's all I did was eat, sleep, and train. So I was able to recover from that. Most folks will have to, account for all of their other physical activity and their workload.
And this is not a beginner. You should not be starting at this. You should not strive to do this. You need to progress into something like this. This is pretty advanced.
Yeah. So that brings us to the last piece, which is periodization. And let's go over a little bit of that.
Yeah, so periodization, essentially your body's going to adapt as you start to train and so on and so forth. And that's good and bad, right? The adaptation is your hypertrophy. It's the growth. It's what you want, but it's also what can cause you to plateau. So what we're trying to do is beat the book. So every time we train, we're trying to beat what we did before, right? And so that's where, tracking your workouts can be pretty important. So today, why don't you talk about a little bit what you did today in the workout to beat the book?
Yeah. A lot of people want to go in and do something different every workout, kind of the P90X sort of thing. Don't know if we mentioned it earlier because we just trained and now my brain's scrambled. But the fact of the matter is when you implement a new program, the first, depending on your level of experience, 2 to 6 weeks even, might be just neural adaptation. You might get stronger simply because you get better coordinated and your body learns to recruit the muscles in the right order. So, somebody who just begins deadlifting, they might gain 100 pounds on their deadlift in 4 weeks.
Right.
But as you get to be an intermediate and advanced lifter, you're going to want to stick with that specific lift. I'm going to say at least 8 weeks. Maybe,
until you stop making progress.
Yes.
Right? So
and try and keep it, try and prioritize the major lift. Try and follow all the fundamental principles twice a week, 8 to 12 reps within a rep of failure. And then grow either weight or reps each workout or each week over time. It's not always linear. So that at the end of the 8 or 10 or 12 week hypertrophy block, you're lifting more reps or doing an extra set or adding weight.
Yeah, and you don't need some magical new exercise to stimulate this thing. This muscle confusion thing is not a real thing.
It's not a thing.
The point is, you want to be advancing, and like Stan mentioned, doing more reps initially is probably a safer approach to this when it comes to risk versus reward. If you're trying to load up the bar with a bunch of weight, you're going to increase your risk of injury. So it's almost better to go past your reps first and then progress into doing more weight. And you're going to do that in smaller increments.
So I tend to measure the first major exercise because it's the one I have the most control over. I'm not pre-exhausted, and I can invest a significant amount of energy into that. I might do a warm-up first just to get my knees warm and get my heart rate up a little bit. But our first major exercise now that we prioritized is a high bar angle plate deep squat with a pause. And so initially I did 315 for 3 sets. And I did 8 reps the first set, 8 reps the second set, and maybe 7 reps the third. And that was failure. I couldn't have done an 8th.
Yeah. This was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, about a month ago.
Yep.
And then within a week or so, or 4 or 5 workouts, 2 weeks, I was able to do 365, 365, or 315, 315, 365. And then now I'm doing 365, 365, 365. And today I'm going to try 365, 365, 405. Still shooting for 8 reps each time. And when 405 on the third set gets easy, then I'll go 365, 405, 405.
Right.
And eventually I'll be starting with 405, 405, 405, and then 405, 405, 475, or 455.
Yep.
I just keep each week as the third set's AMRAP gets a little higher, certainly before I get to rep 10.
Right.
I'm going to add more weight on the front end and try and keep growing this thing week over week. And eventually I hope to get up to 500 for 3 sets of 8.
Right.
That would be a great goal. Who knows if I'll get there or not. Once I reach a plateau, I don't feel like I'm advancing anymore, either in size or strength or reps, then it might be time to start over.
With do a deload.
Do a deload is certainly maybe done somewhere in the middle of that 12-week prep, through maybe week 6. You do a deload, and let's explain a deload really quickly.
So deload, you're essentially cutting your volume and your intensity in half, and just to oversimplify it, there's a lot of ways to do
volume and intensity. Some people will reduce the weight but increase the reps.
Right. So then
that's
you're doing the same volume.
Intensity. You don't really get any central nervous system relief from that. You still have a lot of fatigue. Half the sets, half the reps, half the volume.
The point is to give your body a break, and it's more or less an active break. And we talk about it in the diet too. You should kind of be doing the same thing with your diet, but that's what we're talking about here. And that doesn't mean that you're taking a step back. A lot of times you'll come back from that deload and actually be stronger. So that's the point.
And then once you plateaued or reached kind of the end of your goal phase, we keep going until we plateau. There's no sense making changes if you're still progressing.
If it's working, don't change it.
You could go for 6 months. You could keep getting stronger every week or every other week for 6 months. Keep going. Don't change it. As long as you're responding. And then maybe start a new hypertrophy block. You might introduce some 5s, some 20s, an AMRAP at the end of the set, or have one heavier set. You could do some variation, but then pick a different exercise to prioritize, maybe a deep hack squat. Start with that. That becomes your new beat the book. And whatever you start with is where you start, and then try and grow that over time.
And you're going to pay attention to how you feel throughout this too. Like talking about the 6-month span there, it's possible, but if you start to get really irritable, if your time out of the gym is not quality, that may be time to reassess, and you may need a deload, even if you're still progressing in your book. So
I was fortunate to have competed in both bodybuilding and powerlifting. So I would do a hypertrophy block for maybe 12 weeks or 14, and then I would transition into a strength block, and I would do less frequency, less sets, less reps, longer rest between sets. I was going heavier, obviously, but I had the good variety and the good variation. I encourage all my powerlifting friends to do the hypertrophy blocks between powerlifting blocks for a whole host of reasons, which is another entire video. But basically, we do want to make changes. We'd like to make them not too often, create a new routine and periodize that new routine.
And they don't have to be drastic changes. I think that's another take-home point. A lot of people think they need to revamp their entire program. You can incorporate the same exercises if you just prioritize them in a different order. That will have an effect on your training. So,
well, those are the fundamentals. That's how I design my blocks, and I pay attention to all of these important scientific principles for optimizing hypertrophy. Thanks for tuning in.
Take care.